Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Did you bring your thinking caps? Because it's time to put them on. Because the conversation starts now.
I'm hugging you.
Yes, I love it. A virtual hug. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot. This is the place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. And we are here with Cathy Dimarchos. She is an amazing businesswoman from Australia. And I'm going to really kind of go deep into her brain because I want to understand and prepare myself for 2023, 2024, 2025. I can't go back to 2019 or 2020. This is a new day. Business has changed, strategies have changed, positioning has changed, but also what do people value? That has changed also. It's not necessarily the dollar bill or the misplaced curls in your hair. But what's important and how are we going to reach those goals? How are we going to be women in business and have a work-life balance? Because now the world is an oyster. We're just a little bitty pearl. How are we going to stay connected? What is inside the pages of her book? She has a complete library, and so much and more. So, Brains, help me welcome her all the way from Australia, Cathy Dimarchos. How are you, Cathy?
I'm very well. Thank you, April. It is such a joy to actually be here and to share the word and the message.
Well, let me tell you, you are impactful because, Brains, if you have not seen her on the internet, you've missed a treat. You got a couple of awards, didn't you win? I'm not sure of which one they were. Were they the Mompreneur or Entrepreneur Awards for Australia? You are with the Cutting Edge. Aren't you good friends with Peace Mitchell?
I am, yes. Peach is
I'm
a
telling, I
delightful
love those women.
individual.
I love
Yeah.
those women. They are doing it. Pete told me her great story how she went from a homemaker of four children, and now she is acknowledging women all over the world. How do you play a part in this? How do you show up in the world, Miss Cathy?
Well, first of all, I think the one thing that I really want to encourage people and what I show people to do is to be the whole of you. It is so important that we don't actually try and actually be a different version depending on who we're with and or what we're doing.
Mm.
And so for me, one of my biggest things for women to really particularly understand is be who you are. Don't be a different person at work to who you are, in your home or with your friends. At the core of everything that we do are our values. So if we actually really want to show up in the world,
Mm.
show up as the whole of you, right?
Wow. But you know what? Sometimes that can be misconstrued. Women have had to mask, women have had to suppress who they are for decades, even now. They feel like they have to compete. They feel a lot of times like they can't bring their true feminine essence to the boardroom. What do you say to that woman?
It's interesting because my entire career has actually been in a male dominant environment.
Mhm.
And do you know, April, I don't ever think that I thought that I was different or doing things differently, or, as the title of one of my books, going against the grain. I have been the whole of me. And you know what? That did mean that I actually reached out and hugged men in the boardroom table. And I may have been the only female in that room, but that's who I actually am as a person. That's who I actually grew up to be, to embrace people and to actually be okay to show that. And look, I can tell you, there were many a times, particularly, in the 80s and 90s, where I'd lean in to actually give somebody a hug and they'd go, what's she doing?
Right,
What's she
right,
doing?
right, 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 right.
But it's now actually okay. It may not be okay, in the last couple of years because of what we've been experiencing, but that generosity and that extension of my body to your body to say, I am actually including all of you,
Mm.
actually breaks down the barriers without us actually having to say anything. That simple gesture of actually opening yourself up. That's what you're doing when you go to hug. You're saying, I'm open. And so it's the little things like that for me, I say to women, if you don't do it, first of all, what you're doing is you're not giving anybody else the permission to do it too. And you're not being true to yourself. I actually don't know how to be anybody else. And all that I can be is who I am. And so for me, my entire legacy has actually been to walk my talk, not to talk my talk. And so I show people how to do things, not suggest that they do something different to what I do. And so that sort of, I guess, gives you an insight, right?
Exactly. Well, tell my brains a little bit about, your illustrious career and what you've done and the accomplishments that you've made.
Okay. So I started really early in my life in the banking industry. So finance has actually been in my blood for 35 odd years, and I still actually service that industry. I hold licenses for the sector. Through that time, though, I've had many pinnacle moments. One was actually during the global financial crisis in my mid-20s, where I actually had one suicidal client. I had a few, but this one particular suicidal client who reached out to me very late at night, and that changed my trajectory and my understanding of really who I honestly wanted to be in life. And that actually meant to be focused on people, and people be the center of everything that we do in business. So I looked at that opportunity as one to recognize I didn't know everything. I may have been brilliant at my work, at my job, but if I actually didn't know how to hold the space for somebody who reached out in such a desperate stage, then I couldn't do my job. So I actually studied to become a qualified counsellor. I did a 4-year degree, and then I actually practiced for 3 years whilst I stayed in finance.
Wow.
The next stage, I guess, that was a change in my trajectory was I took a 4-year sabbatical. And at that stage, I was actually approached by a couple of entrepreneurs that had something like 10 businesses who kept saying, can you come and help us? Can you come and help us? And I kept saying, I don't want to think. But at that time, I was also then, I guess, exploring. I started sales with an educational firm called DK Learning. They're global. That actually enabled me to see that there was a different side to me. So I could sell, within months, I was actually on an international platform, in conferences. And then it was, what else? So I kept asking myself, what else could I possibly do? In everything, though, that I did, I took those skills and the traits that I actually learnt from being a counsellor. And my career slightly changed after that. I never went back to the bank, but I kept staying in the finance industry. That actually enabled me to do some remarkable work that took me, internationally in my later years in life, really explored other avenues, and I became a consultant and a business advisor. So working across different cultures, working across different continents, really actually enabled me to better understand that there was so much more that we could bring to business. In 2014, when Ebola broke out, that was another critical moment for me, because my 16-year-old daughter sat at the dining room table and said, I'm going to go and volunteer in Africa.
Wow.
Right. So Ebola's broken out, and my husband's initial reaction is, no, you're not.
Right.
Why on earth do you need to go and volunteer there? Right. But for me, it was really actually understanding that when people have such a clear vision and conviction to do something,
right,
then it's actually our duty to actually help them do that. And so that became the next stage where I really looked at things on a global basis. So for me, that meant keeping her safe, honoring my husband. In every discussion, we have to listen to everything that's being said.
right.
It's not just what we want. So that's something in business that doesn't seem to happen. The initial reaction is, let's listen to what person is saying, and then let's actually give a response. But that response is actually reactive, because all that we're doing in that moment is not absorbing what is being said, because we're so quick to actually want to give a,
Right. We
a
want to be
response
quick to
to that.
respond. We want to be
Yeah,
quick to respond. It's
yeah.
like I learned that from one of my mentors in sales. She was amazing. We walked into a business meeting and she said, "Now watch this." I said, "Okay. Well, we have a budget of, $20,000." And she goes, "Up to," and just quiet. The woman could not stand the silence. She said, "Up to 35,000." She said, "Great, I'll bring you in at 39.5." That silence is golden. That gives you an opportunity to prepare your answer. You might be missing something or over talking it, overthinking it. And we have a tendency to do that. And women in business. That's why we want to slow down. But Cathy, I also find that women sometimes have a hard time making a decision. Not all women, not you and I. We can go in there and chop it up like Ginsu knives. But there's others that will go in, they have to hem and haw. They've got to co-sign it. They've got to think, they've got to meet on the meeting to see what we're meeting about, to make a decision. What do you say to that person that's indecisive, a woman that's indecisive in business? Because that can hinder you.
So there's a couple of things that actually holds, I guess, people back, and in particular women. It's actually not having that clarity about where to start. So that trepidation that occurs is, first of all, I need to actually understand how to do something. And my response to that is, you actually don't need to know how to do something. That's where you actually start to collaborate. That's where you bring in people, right? It's actually understanding where your place of genius is and actually focusing in on that. So that doubt that actually occurs, what you've just referenced, about trying to actually make a decision but not being able to because they just want more and more information. That's what it's about. It's like they think that they need to do everything, be everything, know everything, and you don't. And that's, to your point earlier, we're not in competition.
Exactly.
Of all things, if women actually understand one thing, we are better collaborators, but it's giving ourselves the opportunity to do that.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
No.
I agree. And feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Oh, you speak my language.
Yeah, but being a bit of a risk taker, I love that. My brother taught me a bad hobby. It was how to shoot dice.
Right.
I learned that, but you know what? When I go to Vegas, don't you try to take me to a slot machine. I want to go and be with the high rollers. But what I learned from that was to think quick on my feet, to be responsible, and to know that life is a crapshoot and you've got to take a chance.
Yeah.
And there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers.
Yeah.
So what do you say to a woman that is, or a man? Let's not just be gender specific and beat up on women, because there's a lot of men out there that are very open and very receptive to what women are doing and what they bring to the table. But what do you say to those people that are really afraid to take a chance in business? They've run against a brick wall. They've had some opposition. How do you encourage them to keep forging ahead?
Well, failure is something that I actually integrate into business. And in fact, I actually talk about the celebration of failure. And I'll share with you a couple of things around that. First of all, our actual fear around failure is actually triggered because there's actually been studies. So fMRI studies have actually shown that where we actually experience, emotions such as fear, pain, rejection, all of those things that make us go, it sits in the same part of the brain as where we experience physical pain. So everybody in life has experienced physical pain. So what happens in our brain is it says, if you do this and you fail or you're judged or whatever, you are going to feel this pain. And so we protect ourselves without even knowing that that's what we're doing. So that is actually part of our innate, right, being. So if we actually understand that's the reason why it's happening, and we can actually bring that to the forefront when we're experiencing it, it is like you said, April, it's actually feeling it and walking through that, recognizing, oh, this is what it is, right? However, the key to success is actually identifying that, you know what, we want to actually have moments of failure, because it is through those moments of failure that we will actually be able to look at, what did we do well? What were the parts that we didn't, and strengthen from that? And that's what, I talk about anti-fragility a lot. I don't talk about resilience because I think it's been overplayed. But when we actually take that one extra step, we also then actually apply what Nassim Taleb has actually introduced with anti-fragility, is that second and third order thinking, which means that we also then break that possibility of failure down into small bits so that it is not catastrophic. And we then apply, that mitigating factor. If this happens, what else can we do? So I actually say to people, change 2 words instead of always saying what if, which elicits doubt. Say what else? What else can I do? Right?
What
really
else is
simple.
possible?
Yes,
What
absolutely.
else is possible? You know what? One of my Australian guests gave me these 2 mantras, and I have it right here on my computer. I don't take it down. It says, how can it get any better than this? And what else is possible?
That's right.
And when you open and you ask that question with a curious, sincere mind, there's infinite possibilities.
Absolutely.
I have to hold on to myself. I have choices and options because, God spoke to me, and he's given me something recently. He just gave me an amazing blessing. But within about 48 hours, I go back to playing my singing bowls and get into my spiritual place. And I hear this very sweet, angelic voice say to me, but now it is your turn to be of service.
Yeah.
To whom much is given, much is required. What sacrifices have you made on your journey?
Oh goodness, I think my whole philosophy in business and in life is about paying things forward. And so I always actually look at, is that getting me closer or is it actually detracting me? So I've made choices where I have actually placed family and people at the forefront rather than actually for monetary reasons. Absolutely every single day of the week. And I don't look back on that. That's actually about my values. I've made choices about whether I actually engage with somebody or not from a business perspective and from a personal perspective. So to be really clear, if a business doesn't have ethics and it doesn't align with my values, it doesn't matter how much they're going to pay me, April.
I know, I'm with you.
It's not me.
It doesn't sit right in my soul.
Yeah.
And it's like planting a seed in unfertile ground.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And I totally get it, because that's why we are able to be influencers and impactors. We have something to give. Something has been instilled in us, and we want to pour that into others and watch and see what grows organically from that. So I'm with you 110%. What's on your whiteboard back there? What are you planning? I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, what is she doing? I want to know. I want some insight.
That's, I forget that it's there, but I actually started to jot down the next 18 months planning. So I work on a minimum of 18 months programs up to at least 5 years. For me, it is always about future focus. So this is actually about, well, I run part of my business is actually about, as you know, paying it forward. So I actually am very big on educating our future generation, developing future leaders. And for me, that starts at a young age. That starts at the age of 12. So I've actually developed programs, leadership programs that start from 12-year-olds. The next stage, which is a four-week program. The next one is actually for 15 to 17-year-olds. So that, middle school, hormone building. And then there's actually there's 2. The next 2 are actually for school leavers, One is actually that wants to go out into the world and actually be future influencers for impact, not influencers like we know. And the other one is for entrepreneurs. But in every program, April, I actually build in a social enterprise outlook, which means that if you're actually part of the program, you are also actually contributing to somebody else. And for me, that is how we all need to be living life. So it's never about lining our own pockets, it's about elevating others. And so that's partially what this is about. It's also actually incorporates programs for women. Yeah. So for young girls, again, specifically, then for women in leadership, and then for women entrepreneurs. And they're all global programs.
Well, Brains, I want you to hear what she's saying. Are you listening to the demographic and the population? I sit here and I look at the television, I listen to the radio, and I just really get nauseous. Because you have these same old fuddy-duddies. I don't care what country they are, it's the same old talking heads. Nobody is really cultivating the next generation. I love that. I'm working with the program now, and I really hope that this is a part of what I was asked to do, with working with young women to develop solar energy. I want them to be able to design it. I want them to be able to install it. I want them to be able to do the mathematical calculations. This is something that is progressive, to get clean water, to get micro loans, to be self-sustainable. Because for some reason, I don't know, like 10 years, the critical thinking slice of raising a child has been totally erased. They don't know how, and I say this with love, millennials, but you have to tell them each thing to do. It's not, we were latchkey kids. You would come home, you would do your homework, you'd have a snack, you'd watch some TV, you do your chores. I mean, you had a routine of what to do. Now it's a lot different, and that is because of us as parents. We've given them options and choices. So with you cultivating them again from 12 to 15 to 18, and I think that's brilliant. And I really, really thank you for that, because I love young people. They are my favorite. They're going to take care of me one day if I'm good to them. So tell me about your books. I want to see your books. Give me a couple of them, and really what is in the pages, and what's one of your favorites?
So this was my first book. Can you see that?
Yes.
It's actually called Same People, Different Vision. So I actually started this book, which most people would say was probably in a moment of crisis. I actually had just finished speaking nationally across the country, and landed to find that within a couple of days, my father had a tragic fall in hospital, and that led to a brain bleed. And sadly, 6 days later, he passed away. But the day before he passed away, my mother had a heart trauma and was rushed to a different hospital. She collapsed in the car as I was pulling up into the car park to see my father. So she was rushed off by ambulance to a different hospital and didn't get to say goodbye to my father. Within a couple of days, we went into full lockdown in Australia. So we had all of that happening, I guess. And in that moment, I had the calling, I will say, to say, you need to be more, you need to do more. So I started writing.
That was the same voice that I heard. It was, and it's clear as a bell. See, people, you have to understand whatever your religious doctrine, faith, or whatever, but when this sweet angelic voice, or when you get a download, it is undeniable. Am I right, Cathy? You have
absolutely.
You have to act on it. And if you don't, it is a missed opportunity that may never come your way again. To be of service is to be a blessing.
Yeah. So at the same time, that calling and that vision, I don't do things by half measures. I realized that everybody was suffering across the globe. So I reached out to one of the ladies that I'd been working with in Tanzania for the previous 5 years. So when my daughter wanted to do her volunteer work, she spent a month in Tanzania, and then I spent 2 months in Tanzania following that. And we spent time living with a Maasai, and we had done visits to and from several times. But during that moment of my calling, it dawned on me that they would be suffering potentially even more than what we were. So I said to her, bring all of your actual friends who know the values that we actually uphold. So they are leaders, they are entrepreneurs. I will actually start running leadership programs online, and we will actually help develop what they need to do to
Wow.
actually move forward. So that became the beginning of what else I started to do over there. That then led to the leadership programs that I run there for the young kids. So last month, we actually put 160 students through the program. So I actually trained my facilitators on the ground. They actually get paid. This is now part of their business model. I actually fund the programs myself. I actually get food for the students to come in every day. I actually get them transported. And if we don't actually run it out of a school and it's in a community centre, I actually hire a business centre so that they actually really know how they can actually envisage their future and how they can contribute in paying forward. And so for me, it's not about doing things once. It's actually about that multi-layered and that continual solid foundation that we build on. And when I can show people how to do it, then it is embedded in them. And that's the reason why I do everything in layers and I follow through. It's not just a quick fix for me. You know, everybody in the world can do that. Everybody does do that. That's not me.
Well,
I'm about sustainability. And
absolutely.
I then also committed, April, to do other volunteer work. So I actually wanted people to see that you can run a sustainable business by paying things forward. So I committed to an 18th month program where I paid, and I guess my paid time was 60% pro bono. For
Wow.
me, if I could do that for 18 months and actually have a sustainable and scalable business, then everybody knew that they could do the same. And I'm not asking people to actually contribute on that bigger scale, but nobody can actually say to me that you can't actually have a sustainable, scalable business. I know I can do it. I've done it year after year after year. I did it for 2 years. I still dedicate pro bono work to people in Australia, to women, but I also actually do all of my work internationally, you know, with the kids. And I'm actually showing others how to do it too. And then this is my second book, and this is an anthology. And I realized that I do things differently. And so that this is actually about giving permission for others to actually be the whole of them and to do things their way. You know, you said earlier, April, you know, things are different. We're moving differently.
Different.
And so we can't do what we've done in the past.
Right.
We draw a line in the sand. You do it today. Choose who you want to be. That's what I say. But be the whole of you. You know,
I
that
was
might
just
mean
I was just having a conversation with my niece. She was here and she was 42 years old and she had never been to the zoo. Who knew? I would have taken her years ago. And it was such a revelation for her. And we started talking about life and choices and options, and she just started to cry. And I
yeah,
said, "What's wrong?" She says, "Well, I've gotten my master's degree and I'm not making enough money. I'm stuck." And I said,
mm,
"The only reason why you're stuck is because you are going by the traditional model of thinking outside of the box. Now it is time for you to build a new box. Your
yes,
box may not be four sides. It may not have a top. It may not have a bottom. But you have to be creative. And you have to ask the universe, how can it get any better than this? What else do you have in store for me?" And
yeah,
she was like, "I feel different after talking to you." And that made me
mm,
feel good because I've opened up that window of opportunity. And that
yeah,
is what you have done. But let me ask you something, Cathy.
mm,
When you do things like that, and I do things like this, girl, sometimes I get nervous because because you realize the magnitude and the scope and the scale that you've reached. I mean, now we all have to have an ROI. We all have to figure out, how do I get off on this? How does this make me feel good? Because it's great to give to others, but you want to feel good about your accomplishments. What do you say to yourself when you just hit that benchmark and you just say, wow? Do you go out and buy yourself a diamond ring or get a manicure? What do you do to reward yourself when you have achieved your accomplishment?
Do you want to know honestly? I say,
Yeah.
what else? I say, what else? What's next?
Wow.
I can only be better than who I was yesterday. So for me, I actually know where I'm meant to be, and it is not where I am today. And so, that vision for me is that creating that ripple effect. It's about raise the baseline. I'm so far away from actually raising the baseline globally. I want our developing countries to actually be starting from the same baseline as everyone else. There is no reason why anybody, should actually be starting any differently just because they're born in a different place, right? Into a different family. That's what I want. So for me, it is what else? Where else am I going? Who else is coming into my life? The one thing that I've realized more, recently is the amazing humans that cross my path.
Oh, yeah.
Globally, April. And so I'm so cognizant now that if somebody crosses my path, I need to pause. That moment of pause actually allows me to better understand who I'm in the presence of. And there are amazing humans everywhere. So that's what I strive for.
Well, wow, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Cathy, for being here with me and my brains on the edge and sharing your perspective and, just really elevating my level of curiosity, my wishes, my desires, my capacity. You have expanded that for me, and I thank you. I really do.
It's a pleasure.
So tell my brains how to get in contact with you. If they want more information, if they want to be a contributor, if they need to find out resources, how do they get in contact with you?
So it is through LinkedIn is the best means. So just under my name, Cathy Dimarchos, and also my website, Solutions to You. So it's solutions with an S and then the number 2 and then YOU, because you matter.
Wow. Brains, did you get that? I need you to go in. I'm so excited. I can't even find my postcard now. Here.
So it's solutionstoyou.com.au. I should have said that. Sorry.
Yes, get the AU, and I will be sure
That's
to
right.
put that at the end of the show notes. Brains, I need you to go in, look at the website, get the information, figure out where your best fit might be. I need you to go to this address right here. You see it? I want you to love, like, share, and leave a comment. This is the only way that Cathy and myself can expand, is that we know what's in your mind. We can't give you what you need if you never tell us. Yeah. We can't feed you if we don't know that you're hungry. Right, Cathy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Gosh. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And you know what? Sometimes if it doesn't work out the way that you expect it, it might be a blessing in disguise because it just wants you to wait for the next great opportunity. And that might be with me and Cathy.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and value you, and I'll be watching.
Thank you too, April. It's been an absolute joy.
All right. Bye, brains.